Hey Mike, great to have you here again in the lovely city of Stuttgart in our mothership.
Hi Michael, great to be here.
Cool. In our last webinar, we just scratched the surface of Build.One. So we discussed a lot about low-code, no-code categories and why we don't fit into those kind of boxes as an end-to-end platform. And you showed how easy it is to use the low-code part of Build.One. So to build screens, to build different views, and also to integrate things like Google Maps in a view in that one. Mm-hmm. So now I'm in sales, and Google Maps is really interesting for me, but I'm more interested in Salesforce data, for example. Can I integrate Salesforce?
Yeah, you can integrate Salesforce, also HubSpot or others. In fact, we have, I think, several hundred connectors to databases, to on-premise, in the cloud, also any REST API, but also integrations with applications like Salesforce, HubSpot, SAP, and so on. Integrations with Office 365, and so there are really a lot of ways to integrate, and it's quite easy. And maybe we can pick up where we stopped last time and try to add some Salesforce data to the screen.
Please. Yeah,
so
cool.
Let me switch to this screen that we've built last time. Let me search that. Here we have it. So let's open that one. Last time I think we stopped at, we added another panel here, showed that how flexible we are with the screens. You can even build multiple pages, or you can divide one page into several panels. And if you would like to add Salesforce stuff here, the first thing we would do is, let's go to the data sources and search for Salesforce, and we find here accounts from Salesforce as a data source. We just drag and drop that data source onto our screen. And then the next thing is we would look for a grid, for example. Again, we search for accounts. So here we have the grid with the most common Salesforce account fields, and we just drag and drop it over to our empty panel here and save it. And then just like we did last time with the map, we then go to the flow designer, and now we have a new data source here. And now we create a smart link from that Salesforce data source to the grid with the account data. Pick the right type of smart link. And once we save, we now see we have two data sources here. We could also link the two together. So I could also say I create a link between the data sources and then specify a foreign key relationship. So I could show accounts of one or opportunities of one account or so. That would also be possible. You can really integrate any number of data sources and backends into one screen and bring it together. So the 360-degree view, as it's often referred to. And if maybe let's go to Salesforce here. I'm not a Salesforce expert. Let's create a new one. How does it work? Let's create a new account here. Webinar account. And we choose an address. Street, or maybe choose this one. We save it. And if we go back and launch our screen here, then we see our data, we see the map that we created, and now we see a new panel. And if I edit or show it, then we see here our Salesforce data. So there should be, here's the webinar Salesforce data. So you see this is picked or fetched in real time from Salesforce, and that's how easy it is to integrate really any kind of data source. Still with the no-code part of Build.One.
Very cool. And I think you just mentioned the 360-degree view on customers. I think we all faced the 2 hours at a support hotline calling a support agent with a question, and that support agent then said, "Oh, great, Mr. Lever, that you called me. Sorry, you are not in the system. I'm just looking at, let me launch the next application or the next application." So with that.
Yeah, that's was something that can be solved with Build.One very easily, because you can really, you can bring together all kind of data sources from different systems in one screen. And also, if you look at this, it's very easy. If you have a different data source here, you just replace the data source, or you draw a different link. So if I would like to show data from in this grid from this table, I would just either draw the link here and delete the other, or you would just say, okay, no, this comes now from here, and that's it, and it will still work.
Cool. I'm just thinking of the use case that maybe one of the guys just watching the webinar, they have maybe Microsoft Dynamics Nav as an ERP system, and they are moving to SAP S/4HANA, for example. So we could easily build a view displaying Navision data and also SAP S/4HANA data in one screen without changing.
Yeah, and that's because we really separate the logical part. So if you have a data source in Build.One, like we see it here, or like we see it here, that data source is really a logical thing. You can use it here, and no matter if it's a database table, an application, or even we have a data source called files, which from the server reads from the file system, just files. So there's no database table at all, but you can use it here like any other data source. And the idea is that every data source has the information about the actual really backend system that provides the data, like the database and table, or the application like Salesforce or whatever. And when you launch the application, then you could think about the data source in Build.One like every data source has 2 parts, the front-end part, which is always the same, and then the corresponding backend part. So that means when you launch this screen here, then all of those data sources, they will then connect to their corresponding real physical data source. And that means you can build any screen, you can create data sources as many as you like, logically. Build your screen, put everything together, draw forms and grids, fields and so on. And only at runtime, when the screen is really launched, then you need to have the physical connection to your data. So that gives you a lot of flexibility. And we have even use cases where applicational screens are developed before there is even a physical, before the database or backend is even available.
Okay.
That's the kind of flexibility you get with Build.One.
Cool. And when I recap the kind of like last 10 calls I had with prospects, they were all out of the manufacturing industry. So they built whatever kind of tools for B2B customers, and they all think of predictive maintenance and adding services to the products they sell. So as I understand you right, we can consume APIs, we can look into file system. If there is a new file, we can import XML or whatever. So if for example, one of those machines says, I have a problem, and they send back data to the producer of that machine, we could kind of like consume that log file or what comes in, and then what can we do then?
Or messages. So like data source in Build.One are not just tables or applications. Could be we can integrate with Kafka. We have integration with Elasticsearch for quick text, full text search. We could have integration with enterprise service buses and messaging systems. So that all could be data sources.
Cool. Yeah. And in that specific use case, the customer said, okay, that's great that we can integrate with that one, but he does not want to have somebody in inside sales or at the services department then taking care of that ticket. He wants to have an automatic workflow, kind of like the machine is crashed, whatever. The customer has a service contract. If the customer has a service contract, send out the technician to that customer. If he has no service contract, call the customer and quote a service contract. Do we have something like workflows also in Build.One?
Yeah, sure. So if we can go to that part. I mean, so far in most of our videos, we only made it into the UI part. But here, if we go from that whole screens, forms, menus, and all that stuff, if we go to the logic part, we have a lot of different ways of implementing logic in Build.One. You can implement logic on the back end, implement logic that runs in the UI, business rules, some drag and drop logic, all the way down to Pro Code, which I think we will cover in the future webinar. And the one way is the workflow, or as we call business processes that you mentioned. So if I go there, I see my available business processes. And if I open that one, I see the business process designer. And here you can add additional steps. You can link all that together. And we see here quite complex business processes that you can create. And it's not only visual, so if you deploy this business process template to the business process engine, it will actually be really executed, and then you can link that to Build.One screens and things like that. You have an integration where you can show all the tasks for your current users. So you can, if you have a task, you click on confirm or reject, and then we send it back to the workflow engine, and it will go the correct route and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. And I always thought that business process management is kind of like rocket science, but I can read most of what is now visible on the screen. So if I'm a business owner, I could work together with the IT on that one too?
Yeah, you would then typically, that's what I mentioned, we're an end-to-end platform for developing business applications. And we address the different roles and stakeholders with their tools, like a designer or like a professional developer or a citizen developer, or here a business analyst, for example. They will work with those stuff. They will want BPN, Notion, and things like that. And we also support common workflow engines and like Camunda, for example, because I mean, we don't reinvent the wheel. There are great workflow process engines out there, so we integrate them similar to other parts where we, like for versioning, we use Git and things like that. So if there are good things available, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And the same is true here. And as you say, it really addresses the business analyst. He or she can build that process with the tools they know, with the wording, the BPN, whatever. I'm not an expert in those matters. So they can use their tools, save it, and then maybe a professional developer, a Pro Code developer will pick it up and integrate it with some data source or events, as you mentioned. So we bring all the different roles together in one platform. That's the idea of Build.One.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, and I think in the next webinar we will deconstruct the engine.
Well, no, I would not go that far, but I think you want to go a bit deeper and see how would a professional developer work with this? How would I really do some coding and things like that?
Yes, please. That would be highly appreciated.
Yeah, that I think we will cover in the next webinar.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Cool. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.